Stranded in space on a ship crashing into the atmosphere of an unknown planet, Emile Spencer knew that the only way to survive would be by his own wits and guile. He vowed that somehow he would find and slay the titanic cosmic beast that put him in this predicament, VY572. With every installment, we follow Emile's explorations and discoveries on this journey of revenge against all odds. I'm Midnight Jester, and this is the Left Behind Starforge series.
Last episode started with Emile being entirely encapsulated inside of this amorphous, sentient, colorful lava lamp goo known as a pheroid, at least in Emile's mind. And speaking of in Emile's mind, while Emile was fully encapsulated by this creature, it seemed that it had control over Emile's mind and what his sensations were, everything like that. The two of them struggled a little bit, Emile trying to do something of lucid dreaming to be able to manipulate the reality and fight for control back so that he could try and escape, but he was unsuccessful. And in order to survive, he made a deal wherein the pheroid would be able to invade his body like a symbiote, go inside of him. It was certainly an uncomfortable proposition, but working together, the two of them did get Emile off the ship with concentrated starship fuel as well as the hard drive from his old computer. And it's a good thing they did it when they did, because the Reacher, just after they had managed to escape, finished its fully sinking into the lava bed that it was inside, now fully covered. After crossing the rest of the chamber and getting back into the skiff, the two of them decided that perhaps they weren't such bad companions after all. The pheroid, now named Fern, agreed to leave Emile's body, the one caveat being that Emile was going to need to make good on returning Fern to their homeworld. Fern had been kidnapped in order to be studied on the Reacher, and while Fern does not have the vocabulary to describe where their homeworld is in a way that Emile would understand, Emile has promised, has vowed, to get Fern back somehow. And the first key to doing that, Emile thinks, is going to be inside of the field of pods containing scientific data. Maybe inside one of those there will be information about where Fern was collected. And so the two of them went off together in order to get back to that place, but found that Valkyrie and co. were still in the area, presumably on the lookout for Emile, trying to find tracks of where he went off to. Emile decided that it would be best to try and lure them away from that area with a diversion so that he could go back and study that information in order to get Fern home, and then afterwards make their way back to the ship that they're looking to hijack. Unfortunately, in the process of setting up the diversion, Emile had a sudden mutation, a result of the mixture of the radiation from the insect that he had been in close quarters with, as well as as Fern having been inside of his body for a time. That radiation and that tendency towards electromagnetism mixed together, and Emile let forth a gigantic pulse of EMP from his body. It shut off all of the electronics in the area, including everything responsible for the operation of the skiff that they were riding on. The two of them are now stranded miles away from the pods that they were trying to get to, and even farther away from the ship that they're trying to hijack. It's not looking very good right now. But before we get back to that, I want to do a little bit of a vignette here. Valkyrie and team are over by the pods, having been there for quite a while now. They're signing to each other. One of the other Concordians, one that has a rather large rifle on him, perhaps the one that was able to... one that has a rather large rifle on him. Large enough and with a big enough scope to be able to make very, very long shots. The two of them are conversing. And the one with the rifle says to Valkyrie, in sign language as usual, "Haven't been able to pick up any more tracks. How's your luck been?" And we can see now that several of the pod doors are open, not just the one that had the insectoid that they were all fighting, which is still nearby, but dead at this point, but that pod door is still open, but so are numerous other ones. And Valkyrie is clearly holding up some kind of a data pad, and it is holding some manner of data pad in one hand, but using the other one signs back Looks like it was some kind of scientific vessel that crashed. I guess he was telling the truth about that much anyway. The one with the gun signs, "Do you want me to keep looking?" Valkyrie hesitates for a moment, thinking, they've been out here for hours. If they still haven't picked up any indication of exactly where he went, maybe it's time to call it. And just as she is about to sign that, in the distance, we hear the pulsing of the EMP, just this bassy throb, because it's miles away, but it's still enough to catch the attention of the two of them. Valkyrie signs. What was that? The one with the gun holds it up to his face, looking through the very long-range scope in that general direction. But I think we're going to cut from there and go back to Emile. Now, ordinarily, I would give myself +1 momentum at this point for having recapped and set up the vignette and everything, but we are currently at our cap on momentum. But that's okay, I was just doing it because I felt like it. So Emile knows that burst is a real problem. He knows that it was, in theory, the diversion that he was hoping for to draw them over to this area, but unfortunately it also fried all of the electronics inside the skiff. He knows that with what he has available, it is very, very unlikely that he'd be able to get that thing operational again. He doesn't consider it even worthy of his attention, but he knows he's only got so much time to set up. They're going to be coming here, so he needs to come up with a plan. He's pacing around back and forth a little bit. Fern is nearby, having reconstituted back into the kind of hominid form that Fern was trying to take earlier. A little bit better. It's still a little bit loose and not quite as well kept together as before, but Fern has recovered a little bit from that EMP blast. Just kind of turning the pseudo head back and forth, watching Emile pace about. He's got his arms up. He's like talking out loud to himself, coming up with, like, going through kind of an inventory of the situation of what do they have available, what are the problems that need to be solved. He's like, it's like he has a whiteboard in front of him and he's working through a problem. And it's like, okay, so they approximately 2-3 miles away. He's like calculating out how long he has, recognizing like he's striking plans that, like, he'll come up with a plan and then strike it for, like, no, that there won't be enough time. And it needs to be something simple to enact. It needs to be something. It's going to be risky. It needs to be something simple. That means it may be a little bit more risky, but those are the cards I have. So the more I spend time just rejecting plans, the worse I get. Okay. And he turns and he looks at Fern and like he gets that feeling that he's being watched, and he looks over and he sees Fern indeed watching. And then Emile points a finger over in Fern's direction and goes, "You're my ace in the hole." Now, Fern does the thing from before of using colors on the face, manipulating colors in the face area to take on human expressions, and puts on a look of confusion. Now these are very abstract, like not perfect representations of faces or anything like that. The control isn't that good, but some color blobs that are in expression-like shapes. But Emile reiterates, they don't know about you. Here's what we're going to do. First, we need to make sure they get to the right spot because we're going to lay an ambush for them. So we're going to... Emile like looks over and he sees there's like a little bit of fire coming from the skiff. Like some of the short circuiting that happened during the EMP burst did indeed catch a little bit on fire inside, and he's like, what we're going to do, we're going to work to build that up a little bit, fan the flames, make a nice big plume of smoke that'll draw them to the right spot. Okay, we get him here. Yeah, we draw him to the right area. We lay an ambush. He like looks around on the ground a little bit and goes, okay, the ash. Okay, you color yourself like the ash as best as possible. The ash on the ground. I'll bury you just a little bit, just so you can hide, flatten out as best you can. Be nearby. I'll be standing right next to you. So what I need you to do is when I give the signal, you rip all of the guns out of their hands because they're going to have them. And if they do, I'm dead. And if I'm dead, there's no getting you off this planet. I don't even know what they would make of you. But you rip all their guns out towards the two of us. I'll grab one, have it trained on them, and hopefully I can get them to surrender. You're the ace in the hole. You think you can pull it off? And I think Fern probably has a bit of a like look of nervousness and uncertainty. Kind of emotes that Fern certainly hasn't done anything quite like this before with that kind of speed. Like, speed is not typically what Fern is known for. But it's like uncertainty at first, and then Fern decides to like change that to a more positive expression of just like almost like a literal like smiley face. And I think Emile interprets that kind of correctly in the sense of like, you're trying to make me feel better, but... And so he like sighs and just goes, well, it's the only plan we got. I need to start that fire. Come on, we don't have a lot of time. And so we're going to start this off with secure an advantage with wits. Because this is indeed using expertise to try and make sure to build up this fire a little bit higher, and then really like fan the flames, get it as smoky as possible, maybe even gathering some nearby things that look like they would burn a little bit better, doing everything you can to just build this fire up, but not in a way that looks intentional. You know, it's important to make sure that when they finally arrive, it just looks like a big fire spread on the vehicle, not that he made a big bonfire trying to draw their attention. You know, that wouldn't work too well. But we're going to make a wits roll here, and I don't think I have anything that really should be helping me. I don't think it's fair to say what I'm doing is cobbling together a ad hoc tool, device, or weapon. No, we're just building up a fire, so let's do it. Secure an advantage with wits. I can't see any way in particular that I'd be benefiting from Fern's ability to control metal, so I'm not going to get the +1 from that, but our wits are pretty good. Let's see how this goes. All right, getting started with a strong hit. Just barely, but we did get a strong hit. In theory, I would take +2 momentum, but again, we're capped out. But the reason I did this is for the +1 on the next move. So we have a +1. So indeed, they're able, what it indicates is that rather quickly, Emile is able to get this fire built up all the stronger. And, you know, as we cut back to Valkyrie and the small team of the small posse with her, the one that has the scope up, like, snaps his fingers a little bit and motions over, and then points in the direction. And clearly we can indeed see the smoke on the horizon, and makes like a round up motion, and all of them get together on their own skiff and start heading in that direction. So it's successful. It is drawing them over. But now for the really important part. We're going to get a +1 on this move. This is the ambush. I'm just going to represent this all as one big face danger move, because I don't think that it would be too difficult to hide Fern the way. Like, they have a lot of time to set this up, so I'm not going to make them like secure an advantage to hide Fern and all of that. We're just going to do this all as one big face danger shadow move, because this is definitely all about deception, stealth, or trickery. Fern is covered in ash, flattened out as best as possible, and taking on the same kind of color. Emile standing nearby, not far from the skiff, doing his best to look exacerbated, and like when the moment comes that he's like trying to figure out what to do. Like kind of doing the same thing as before, pacing around and stuff, while not getting too far away from Fern. The skiff pulls up, and now here is the question. They have a long-range rifle. Do they have much in the way of benefit of... What is the benefit to... Like, why don't they just take him out from a distance? Why even get close enough? So perhaps Emile, having thought of that aspect as well, what he would do is he'd he'd get down so that the skiff is kind of blocking the view from where he thinks they'd be coming from. Literally hiding for a bit so that they get close enough so that the magnetism will likely work. So Emile, that's part of it as well. He's just literally hiding while they get in closer and closer, and will reveal himself when the moment comes. So they don't see Emile, and they pull up closer and closer. And when Emile determines that they're there, that it's close enough to work, he gives the signal, just kind of, which is basically just a quick like kick into the ash nearby, like not kicking Fern, but just like drags his heel, like kicks his heel down into the ash so that Fern can notice it. And let's make the shadow roll to see how well are they able to set up this ambush to pull all the guns away. So face danger with shadow with the +1 from our secure and advantage, and an additional +1 because this plan is reliant on magnetizing the guns away from them. We're getting use of our connections ability on this. So shadow with a +2, helping get over our shortcomings, especially because we also have 8 momentum right now. So hoping this, I think we're pretty well set up for this. Let's see. After all of that preamble I did about how we've got, 2 +1s on our move and a full 8 momentum, you know what I rolled? A miss. Action dice were 10 and 8. I can't cancel any of them with momentum. I even calculated beforehand. In theory, there's a roughly like 4% chance that I wouldn't be able to at least turn that into a weak hit, which is slightly less likely, ever so slightly less likely, than rolling a natural 1 on a d20. Guess who rolled a natural 1? Now, it's not a miss with the match, at least. So I think what this represents, because of course we fail on a miss, and I gotta pay the price. And the way I want to represent this is that Emile expects that the magnetism will work a little bit better than it does. Like he does it, he gives the signal too early because he gets nervous about them seeing him, gives the signal, and the magnetism goes off, but it is not strong enough to actually it doesn't reach them. Perhaps some of the metallic the metallic ash and stuff that's over Fern perhaps is interfering with it a little bit. I'm going to represent this as a loss of momentum. It's just a minor one, because I think that they don't even they feel like they feel the barest little tug, like something happens. I don't think that they see Emile, and certainly don't see Fern. They don't know exactly what's going on, but now they're at least somewhat aware, like something's up in this area. Perhaps even let's do it like this. They don't see Emile. However, they do notice when the magnetism goes off, it's not close enough to really rip the guns from their hands, but it does manipulate a lot of the metallic ash in the air and over Fern, and sucks it all in that direction. It makes a very obvious hey, look at this exact spot now. And so now all of their eyes are trained on specifically Fern. Emile is still hidden at the moment. And I think they recognize something's not right here. They sign to each other, it's a trap, stay back. And then I think we see the one looking through with his good scope, scanning the area better from a distance to try and figure out what's going on. His finger on the trigger, considering shooting that exact spot, to looks over to Valkyrie for confirmation on whether or not to do it. And I think Emile sees this and is worried they're about to shoot Fern, and he needs to. Well, I took my momentum down by 1, as this is definitely a bit of a disruption. Emile needs to draw them in. And so what he's going to do, Emile thinks that there's a narrow window before they're going to shoot Fern, and it's going to be his fault, and that would be a huge problem. So he's going to just try and like draw their attention away by gonna find a rock on the ground and just chuck it at the guy's head. Not with the expectation that it's gonna damage, but just draw the attention away, get him to not fire on Fern, and then hopefully slowly lure them in by basically like he's going to try and take enough cover that like they just kind of have to get in closer and closer because he expects he's going to get shot at, but he's got a pretty big skiff to hide behind, and so if he can get them to come in a little bit more, then maybe he'll be able to try again and get the weapons magnetized away. But first, secure an advantage with edge as he tries to just... I'm sorry, this is definitely face danger. This is reacting to the imminent threat of they're going to shoot Fern. So let's make that edge roll to keep that from happening. Okay, we have a weak hit. So we succeed, but not without cost. Make a suffer move of -1. So again, I think I'm just going to represent this as more momentum loss because like this is not quite how like this is definitely not the perfect version that he had in his head of how this is going down. It's awkward and slow, but indeed, like he throws the rock, draws the attention off of Fern. They're firing back and forth. He's not getting hit or anything, but like it's just this weird kind of standoff of like blasts coming in, hitting up against this fire while Emile is trying to like taunt them a little bit about how they're never going to be able, like they're not going to be able to blast through the whole chassis. How long do they want to wait? Stuff like that. Like the working to get them in closer. Because indeed, like if they just keep shooting, then like they don't have the angle right now. So eventually, at least one of them's going to have to kind of go in to get the flank. And it takes a while for that to happen. The momentum starts going down. But then Emile calls it again that here's the opportunity. And so we're going to make a shadow move again. Emile, they don't have the angle. They keep plinking off of the skiff. And so at least one of them is going to have to go around to try and like get the flank in and like flush Emile out. At least that is Emile's intention. And when that happens, gives the call, magnetizes the weapons away, and the plan takes forth again. So this is going to be a face danger with Shadow with the +1 from the help from our companion once again. Can Emile pull it off this time? We have another miss, and I think this time it's less that like the magnetism didn't work or anything like that. I think what fails is Emile's attempt to lure them in closer because they're very wary at this moment. And one of them recognizes that there was something more to that area that was drawing in. Perhaps sees like a little bit of a quivering in motion, like perhaps Fern is the one that's not shadowy enough. Gives up the game a little bit. And one of the posse recognizes, wait, that's a living creature. Puts together like there's something going on here. And I actually rolled on the pay the price table for this, and which is the reason why I'm going this direction. I rolled an individual or community you care about is exposed to danger. And so I think that indeed what happened, like it's what Emile was fearing. The dude gets suspicious and shoots Fern. Now, I don't think this is going to be like mortally wounding Fern or anything, but it's definitely not it definitely doesn't feel great. And when it happens, like it becomes very clear, like Fern is not able to keep flattened and hiding at all. Like comes back up from that form with like a little bit of a smoldering, glowing section where it got hit. And it does manage to let out a kind of squeal when it happens. This very like... Emile cries out just like, shit, no. And like decides that what he needs he needs to defuse the situation. He runs out and waving his hands and goes, no, Fern did nothing to hurt you. Just hands completely up in the air, standing in the way of the shot. Fern has done nothing to you. I understand why you're angry at me, why you want to kill me. And like in the process of doing this, he's like getting down on his knees, hands behind his head, and like getting in a position that's basically like, take me into custody. I understand why you're angry with me and why you've been on the hunt for me. Fern didn't do any of that. If it'll save Fern's life, I submit myself to you. I give up. Just take me in. But of course, this is also a lie. This is just one more ploy to try and get them in closer in order to magnetize the weapons away. Now, I think as a consequence of Fern having been shot, like in order to have that actually like mean something, I think that when the moment comes, like I don't think I'm going to get the benefit of the +1 anymore because Fern is a little bit too weakened at the moment to do that as effectively as usual. It'll still be possible in the fiction, but I'm not going to get the +1 benefit from it. And so I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can do to boost my momentum, like any advantages I can secure first, because I'm going to need everything I can. What could Emile do? I suppose first what we really need to do is represent that move he just did of like pleading for, like running out there and pleading and everything, which I think is honestly, I think that can best be represented by facing danger with heart. It's definitely something risky. He's running out, like he's hoping against hope that like they don't shoot either of them. And I feel like that much isn't a lie exactly. Like there's trickery behind this, but the ceasefire part of it is more heart involved. So let's roll that. Maybe that's a little bit of a like. Maybe going with heart instead of shadow there is being a little bit nice to myself, but I need it. Okay, we do get a weak hit on this, which means I succeed, but not without cost. I have to make a suffer move, which unfortunately is not going to be boosting my momentum. But it does mean that they're not going to shoot, which is important. Because they could just, execute Emile right there, and that's not the suffer move I'm going to do. I think the suffer move, since they're not going to shoot. God, I don't want to bring the momentum down. The only one I have left to lose is I could lose supply, but how would I justify that? Is that because like if they came over to frisk it, like to take away his equipment and stuff, by that point he would have already given the signal to try and magnetize their weapons away. So that one doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense for them to like graze him with a shot because the whole point is he's successful. They're not going to shoot. Yeah, I think honestly the one that makes the most narrative sense is unfortunately that he loses a little bit of momentum here. Like it's the tide is certainly turning against him with the whole like I'm on the ground and everything, like I'm not prepared to do anything. His hands are up in the air and all of that. Like he is not well equipped to take advantage of this situation. So is there an advantage he can secure somehow to try and build that back up a little bit? What could I possibly do? Hopefully, how can I use my wits on this? What can I observe? What can I try and notice about the group? Ah, yes, I know how I can secure an advantage with wits. He's going to take this opportunity to look at the disturbed surface of the ground. Where has the metallic ash been drawn from to get himself a better idea of the radius of this effect? Like how close does he have to let them get before it's the time to pull the move? Like taking a look at the environment to get a better idea. This has failed in the past, but he can use that to his advantage to know what is the radius. So we're securing an advantage with wits here. Okay, I get a weak hit, which means I can either get 2 momentum or a 1 on my next move, not a progress move. It's a tough one. I think in this case, I'm going to be best served with the 2 momentum. That'll put me back up to 7, which is making it much more likely that I can rely on the momentum to save me and make at least a weak hit out of this as opposed to a miss. The +1 on my move, probably, I think I need the momentum. So we're going to put that up to 7. As Emile indeed recognize, like it's kind of faint and it's closer than he would have liked, which is I think why it's a weak hit. But he does know now like what is the moment, and they're the group of them. I want to say there's like four in the posse, something like that. A small posse. I forget if I gave a number before, but it was on that order probably. Their weapons are trained. They're slowly heading in. one of them starts signing to another one about, like, Emile doesn't know what they're saying, but it's, like, basically asking about, like, restraints or anything like that, and apparently they didn't bring any. So, like, questioning about what to do. They're, like, slowly moving in into the spot, and eventually Emile waits for all of them to cross the threshold, and when that happens, it gives the signal one more time. This time, I think even just shouting out, like, "Burn now!" And let's hope against hope that the dice allow me to at least make this into a weak hit, because we're doing a face danger with Shadow. As I said, I'm not going to get the +1 because Fern is too injured to give that. Let's see. Face danger with Shadow, one of my weak moves. Oh my god, finally I actually get a strong hit without even needing to use momentum. The dice finally were kind to me. I'm successful and I take +1 momentum, so I'm capped out. All of the guns get ripped out of their hands, and indeed one skitters right next to Emile, and he scoops it up and he trains it on them. And we'll say it's one that's, well suited for the range. It's not like going to be awkward because of like the long scope or anything like that. And he's holding it up at them and just says, "Nobody make a move! Hold it right there." And I feel like this one is an important just face danger with iron. He's trying to intimidate them. We've got full momentum on this. So we're again leaning into moves that I've not got. Actually, I suppose if we're facing danger with resolve, command, or social ability, like it is aggression. It's a toss-up between heart and iron. It's a little bit of both. I'm going to be nice to myself and allow myself to do it with heart and just say it's more of a command than being aggressive. He's not like hitting them upside the head, like pistol whipping them or anything like that. It's just, he has a gun, it makes sense. He's giving the command, nobody move. So there's a face danger with heart, full momentum. Let's see if he can get them to just, like, basically surrender. Strong hit with a match, a double 6 match. So we can't boost our momentum anymore because we're capped out. Alright, so yeah, clearly they were not prepared for that at all. They're so thrown off. I think even when the guns were ripped out of their hands, like it kind of drew them off their feet a little bit. So they're like already on their hands and knees when Emile has that up. They're looking up. They're in a very vulnerable position. And I think Valkyrie, despite all of their, silence and everything up until this point, the group's silence up until this point, Valkyrie lets loose just a scream of frustration. It's like her moment of he can't keep getting away with this! You son of a bitch, you did it again. How? How do you keep getting one over on us? And Emile just says, "Shut up. Here's what's going to happen. You're all going to stay in that exact spot. I'm not killing anybody. And I'm not going to leave you to die. But I am going to leave you. That skiff is mine." No, and they like start objecting. He's like, "Shut up." He like fires into the dirt. And they shut up. "I'm not leaving you to die, but I need that skiff. And there's no way in hell that you're coming with me. I will program it to come back for you. If you don't leave, you'll be okay. Stay here. Seek shelter nearby. I'll program the skiff to come back. We'll go our separate ways." And Valkyrie just starts saying, "You have no idea what you've done. You've made forever enemies. What you've done to our community, we're never going to forget you. And we're a lot bigger than just this outpost here. I'm sending the word out, Emile Spencer. Vault Hunters, we're all coming for you. You get away now, sure, but you're going to have to watch your back every step of the way because we're a capable bunch." Emile says, "It's a real shame. It did not have to be this way. It still doesn't. Maybe someday I'll find a way to make good on this. Someday I'll make it up to your community." And Valkyrie just spits in his direction at this point and goes, "You can't. You've done too much. You're a danger. And you bring danger. And maybe it's not today, but your luck is going to catch up with you. right around the time that the rest of the Vault Hunters do. But despite the poisoned words and everything, I think Emile, takes his opportunity here, keeps the gun trained on them, taking a wide circle around them. Perhaps has Fern, just fully take the rest of the weapons inside of their own body. Just subsumes the weapons, so carries them along with. Emile has the one in his hands. They slowly edge around and make their way to the skiff. Meanwhile, he's just remember, don't leave. I will send it back to you. I'm not a bad guy. This just... The whole situation just... He just, gives up trying to explain. He registers that, it's too late. They're never going to be on the right foot ever again. And, he can't explain it away. Valkyrie just is seething with rage at him. And as a bit of a side note, we are definitely going to have to now consider, I'm going to have to start making, faction moves for the Vault Hunters, and with Valkyrie as, the leader of Concord here, because they're indeed going to start doing stuff in the background to try and, get revenge on Emile. But for now, Emile has made it to the skiff with Fern in tow, and I think that is definitely worthy of progress on I will not die on Cinder. I'm going to find a way off this hellhole. We've got that now at 9 out of 10 boxes. Now, before I consider trying to resolve that move, but before I do, I want to do the events that would happen before we get back on the ship to leave anyway. And so with this skiff, Emile is going to indeed take Fern to the pods that are in the ground. I'm gonna do this as a bit of a montage. We're gonna gloss over this in broad strokes, but they're gonna dig through the various ones that are already open and everything and try and find any information on two things. Emile's certainly trying to find information on VY572 in there. Anything that seems related at all that he can pocket and grab. But also certainly anything that would give any indication, anything related to Fern, so you can find out, where does Fern come from? So let's indeed do a gather information here. I think this is definitely scavenging a wreck, ruin, or abandoned site, so I'm going to get my scavenging move here, so I get to add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. Of course, I'm maxed out on momentum, so that's not really a thing, but scavenger, gathering information with a +1. We roll wits, as we just dig through this whole site, just trying to find the evidence we're looking for. Another strong hit with a match. All right, finally. Things were grim at the beginning of this session, but we're really starting to turn this around here. We're gonna finally get off Cinder. So, on a strong hit, you discover something helpful and specific. The path you must follow or action you must take to make progress is made clear. Envision what you learn, then take +2 momentum. It's a real shame. We'd in theory get 3 momentum out of this, but we can't get any of it. But this is a strong hit with a match, and a double 5 match at that. And to be honest, I didn't really even give myself the benefit of a strong hit with a match last. I guess just that there was no chance that they would possibly surrender. I guess the last match is just that they were 100% compliant. Nothing could ruin that. But that still leaves the question of this new match. A couple of questions. What is the information we get on the strong hit? Which, okay, so I think the match is just that indeed I'm able to get both. Not only do we get the exact log of here is written down, we get a few things out of this. It is a working electronic tablet from a pod that has information about Fern, that indeed has the planet that they information of the planet that's picked up from, which is certainly enough to get our first hit of progress on return Fern to their homeworld, because now we know where that is. Emile can log that. And there's information on this pad about all the various creatures that were taken in. This is clearly a pad that there's information on Pharoids in here, but there is also information on VY572. Something specific. So I need to figure out what it is specific that I learned. This is what the match is giving me, is the additional specific information here. I'm going to roll a revealed creature aspect, because we learn a little bit more about VY572 through this. We get replication. That feels similar enough to me to the idea of it leaving behind the smears. that perhaps we learn more about that. There's some other aspect to, like, what this is saying to me is what we learn is regarding the smears. Maybe information about, like, what will cause, yeah, that's it. What will cause it to leave a smear behind, because it's perhaps not so random. They've noticed some patterns around it. Certain types of environments in space that, like, that will cause it to leave a little bit of smear behind. And I think it just has to do with, like, certain kinds of, like, detected, radiation from from just, like, stars in the right kind of, like, spectrum. Like, there's like something like that where the right frequencies of radiation seem to cause it to be more prone to leaving smears, which is information that Emile could use to, like, if he wants to find a smear, there are environments that he could search that would be more likely to have one than others. And there's, like, that's just what he's able to glean quickly from this. This pad will also give him the opportunity to maybe continue to do more research later. Actually, no. I don't want that. I think that's all, like, it doesn't have a lot on VY572 here. I don't want to be able to just, like, fill out that whole vow by just reading it over and over and over again. That's all he's going to get from this, but it's still a step in the right direction. So we're going to finally fill our first box on that epic vow. If it takes me to the end of my days, I will find VY572 and destroy it. He's got a little bit more of an idea of where to look for pieces of it. So all in all, very successful, which works well with the idea of where we do this in broad strokes. They collect this information. Emile makes it clear, like taps the screen. Got a home for you, Fern. Let's get out of here. And let's see. Do I want to try and get that final 10th box on I will not die on Cinder, I'm going to find a way off this hellhole? Or do I want to just try and resolve it from here and just kind of hand wave that, like, it worked. We got back to the ship, we fueled it up, we got out of here. Narratively, I kind of like it like that. I think I'm just going to try and we're just going to make the progress roll with 9 progress. Let's fulfill our vow as... Indeed, they get back to the area, they spot where the ship is hidden, get on board, fuel it up, and take to the skies. And perhaps if the vow does not go quite right, that'll inform a little bit about how successful it was. So let's fulfill this vow. 2 action dice versus a 9. Okay, we get a weak hit. Your vow is fulfilled, but there is more to be done, or you realize the truth of your quest. If you swear an iron vow to set things right, take your full legacy reward per the vow's rank. Otherwise, make the reward 1 rank lower. Any allies who share this... Okay. I think what this is Emile's recognition that, like, he really does feel very bummed about how this wasn't the way he wanted any of this to go. Like, the darkness that he's experienced on this planet, he's going to be taking with him for a long time. I expect him to lose sleep, imagining, like, still being stuck inside the rubble, and specifically the moment where he dropped a rock on somebody's head. Like, it really shook him to his core. His spirit is completely low. His head, like, he's been beaten up, broken inside of his very idea of, like, who he even thinks he is. He's shaken by it all. And he knows that Valkyrie hates him. Hates him. And is indeed going to send, like, do what she can to send Vault Hunters after him. He's familiar with them. Like, he knows that there are people that seek out these precursor vaults, even though it's illegal and the locations of them have been completely hidden. But these are people that really know their shit, and if there is a group of them working together, as it sounds like the people of Concord are, that could be very dangerous. If they know how to locate lost precursor vaults, they very well could locate Emile. None of this sits right with him. But it's not even about his own personal safety. He just feels so guilty about it all that I think we're going to swear a vow about making things right by the people of Concord. Specifically, because he's taking their ship away. And I think we determined that for whatever reason of just like repairs and stuff, they have not been focused on getting this power core. The power core they were going to salvage from this ship is still in there, allowing it to still make jumps and everything. And Emile recognizes like that's wrong. He's leaving them as sitting ducks. He is going to vow to make things right by getting he knows that they want massive amounts of power to be able to block their signal from being scanned from space. He's going to vow to get them that power source. That's going to be a dangerous vow. So specifically, he vows, I will make amends to the people of Concord with the gift of a power core. Dangerous vow. I think mostly what's dangerous about it is not the acquiring of it. It's not like it's a big illegal thing, right? It'll be expensive, but the dangerous part is indeed delivering it. That's what's going to be so dangerous. But he's going to make that vow. So let's swear that now. I'm swearing it to, well, a connection is in the room, but I'm not swearing it to Fern. Fern doesn't really care. So I don't get to add a +1 from that, but we're going to make a heart move. And I get a strong hit on it, so I'm emboldened. It is clear what I must do next, take +2 momentum, which unfortunately, again, I'm still capped out. Can't do it. I need to make my momentum cap higher. I need to heal myself. But I know what I must do. And I think what that represents is Emile knows where he needs to go. He's got a planet in mind. I'll get to what that means in a moment. We just got to do a little bit of cleanup stuff. For one, just want to make clear that as part of the finishing the last vow, like Emile does indeed program the skiff to like he gives it coordinates and like sets it up for like kind of autopilot thing to go back there. I'm not going to make him make a move to do that. It's not in service of a vow, and like I feel like that's well within his capabilities. Sets it up to go pick them up. Gets on the ship after it's refueled. He and Fern take to the skies, and then when that happens, he's like look in orbit around Cinder, scanning the area, trying to get an idea of like, okay, we're certainly out of immediate danger, but we need to figure out where to go next in order to do this. And the specific information that he has, knowing where to go, is I think he sees the other settlement in this sector. I think he still is not fully aware of where he is, like in the broadness of space, but he does see that there is a ship still within this sector, a pretty large one at that. And it, by all accounts of what he can tell, it's a registered one. Like it's got like it's broadcasting information and everything. It goes by the name of Hyperion and has almost 1,000 people on board. And I think the reason why Emile knows that is the place to go is I think he's heard of the Hyperion before. Like he didn't know it to be in this exact spot, but I think that's what emboldens him is he not only knows the Hyperion, he knows somebody on board. I'm going to make a note to myself to figure that out when we get there, a little bit more about who this person is that he knows on board. We're not going to do that for now. I think I'm going to wrap this one up rather than like the cliffhanger style like we ordinarily do. This is a major final like resolution on something we've been working towards for like all of these sessions. We're going to do a little bit of cleanup, and we're going to spend some XP and then yeah, we'll take it from there. So having successfully completed the I will not die on Cinder and sworn the additional vow for it, a troublesome vow. We get 1 full box on our quests log, which was already sitting at 1 full box and 3 ticks. So I've added that in, which means we now have 4 experience to spend because we had 2 that I hadn't yet spent from my discoveries, and now 2 more from quests. And the way I want to do this is I think we're going to do a couple of things. One, now this ship that we have is finally going to be like the command vehicle that in theory you're supposed to start the game with. We are 12 sessions in on this, and I've been shortchanging myself that asset the entire time. We finally have a command vehicle. So I'm going to give myself that asset right now. We have a starship. Yay! We're gonna have to give this thing a name. And it is my intent to use this 4 XP, well, 3 of it anyway. I'm going to probably purchase a module for this thing. In between games, I had my eye on maybe getting a healing bay for it, because Emile really needs some help healing, patching himself up before we really get rough and tumble on anything else. So I'm going to spend 3 XP on that, give ourselves the healing bay module. I'm sorry, the med bay module. And let's find out a little bit about this ship. First of all, what is its name? Stardust. I think Stardust is the official name that it has in the manifest. Now it becomes pretty clear pretty fast that this is a hot ship in the sense that it is stolen. This is clearly an Imperium ship, and like not just like from a citizen of the Imperium or something like that, more like it's an official governmental ship, presumably one that they would have hijacked from where they were being imprisoned. This thing is rather hot. For a first look for it, it is an outbounder type of ship. Like this thing it's basically made for long. It is not especially heavily armed or anything like that, but I think it is intended for prisoner transport over long distances. These are for fugitives that need to be taken to their much more their maximum security facility in like the center of the Imperium. And so it's a stolen one of those. It does have a med bay on board, now that we've purchased it. I think the idea behind that, though, there's kind of like 2 wings to this. There's kind of like the prison area and the guard area. And the med bay is certainly in the guard area. It seems like, based on stuff put up around and like this, how it was left, that like the implication is that anybody that's being transported by this was probably rather difficult to take down. And so we might need to patch up afterwards. And so it's got all kinds of good kind of like quick combat kind of healing stuff there, like the good gels and stuff. Like it's got some computer assisted stuff. Like it is a solid med bay to deal with just true combat. And as Emile's walking around on it, he reflects on how like there are hundreds and hundreds of there are hundreds of people on Concord. This ship is big, but like it's not that big. It's not like you could fit that many people here, but not comfortably. It could not have been a fun journey to get from wherever they were imprisoned to here. Very cramped quarters. People must have been sleeping on the floor and just like packed in. As for a first look at this thing, it's got ornate markings all over it, which I think are actually even like, I think that's representing more that while people were bored and packed in here and like stressed out on the journey, like a lot of the vault hunters that became the people living on Cinder, and the vault that became the people living in the settlement of Concord, like I think they like graffitied all the inside of this ship with all kinds of vault hunter symbols and stuff, and basically just tagging it. Maybe there will be information to glean in there that could be helpful in the future, but it's mostly just graffiti kind of stuff, just all over the inside. It looks cool though. Like it's not like it. I think a lot of the way they do so, it's very like intricately geometric, and they're very like their iconography is very precise and geometric, like intricate geometric shapes, almost in the way of like a summoning circle kind of thing. Like it's like I don't mean like they literally like it's not magical or anything like that, but it just has that kind of intricate look of like it's cool and all over the place. With a clear idea of where it is he's going to go, I think the last thing we're going to do before we wrap this up is when Emile sees that med bay, well, he's sitting, he's in stable orbit around the planet. He sees the med bay and breathes just such a sigh of relief of like, because he is rough right now. His skin is all kinds of just like sunburned, and like the caustic air has been eating away at it a little bit. It's like pocked a little bit and just very raw looking. He looks just haggard and skinny, and like it is bad. He needs this med bay. So when you use the med bay to heal yourself or another patient, you may re-roll your action die if its value is less than your vehicle's integrity. And we're going to say the integrity is at full right now because we just got it. So we have a full 5 integrity. We're going to make the heal move. Now, I am still treating myself, so I need to use the lower of iron or wits, which is my iron. Because I think the idea is that it's still kind of tricky to, like, it's not completely like just, slap gel on or sit in a back to tank or have like robot arms patch you up. Like, it's just, there's the right stuff in here, but he still has to, tend to his own wounds. So making a heal move with lowest of iron and wits gives us... All right, we have a miss, but I could burn momentum to make a weak hit, and particularly as I really want this to work, and we've been maxed out on momentum this whole time, and we keep running into problems with that. Let's finally do it. Burning momentum to make this a weak hit. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Because of the med bay, the action die is indeed less than 5, so I'm going to re-roll that. Okay, turning this into a weak hit. Unfortunately, one of the action dice is a full-on 10, so my momentum can't help me with that. But we do get a weak hit, which means that if you are wounded, the care is helpful. If you are wounded, which I am, I get to clear that impact and take or give +2 health. So our wounds are finally taken care of. Let's take that one off, which means our momentum cap is now finally back up to 9. We give ourselves 2 health, so our health is at 2 instead of 0, which is nice. However, the recovery costs extra time or resources. Choose one, either lose momentum 2 or sacrifice resources 2. We're going to lose momentum 2. I think it's just Emile takes a long while sitting in the med bay, just going around in orbit over and over again, just recovering for a little while. Like, there's food and stuff in there, but he can't take it on himself to just set out just yet. He needs to just decompress from a very, very, very harrowing time on that planet. And so our momentum goes down as we wait. And as Emile is sitting there in the med bay, recognizing that he really did do it. It was so touch and go in so many different ways, but he survived the crash and he got off that fucking hellhole despite so many people trying to kill him at all times. Despite everything, he's here and he's just like sitting in the med bay, reclining back a little bit, and he starts laughing. Because the hilarity of just how close he was to death during all of that starts hitting him. And so he's just like... And it's like the kind of laughing, just... He's laughing and crying all at the same time because he's terrified. He's terrified of knowing how close that all was, and it's just literally hilarious. And we're going to end on that moment as we kind of like are pulling back farther and farther to just this hysterically laughing Emile finally feeling any kind of sense of safety, but knowing that it's only temporary. Now we're going to do one final thing that we've never done, which is make the end a session move. Because we've ended a significant session or chapter of play. Long chapter, but we have ended a chapter of play. So let's reflect on the events of the game and identify any missed opportunities to mark progress. If you strengthen your ties to a connection, develop your relationship. If you move forward on a quest, reach a milestone. If there's a quest connection or other situation you would like to give focus in your next session, make a note of it and take +1 momentum. I think it's fair to say I developed my relationship with Fern because we've definitely been standing with them against hardship. Like, there was the gunshots and all of that, and definitely at some point Emile also shares this med bay with Fern. I'm not going to make a full-on heal move because Fern is not officially a companion asset that has a health track or anything, so I'm not going to worry about that. It's just narratively, Emile will also patch up Fern's wounds to the best visibility of how that even works. I think it's more just that Fern gets better over time, but we're going to develop that relationship. So getting 2 more boxes on Fern. We're up to 6 progress. Because yeah, they're in a gun battle and everything. And we're able to get that moment of like, look, I'm truly going to get you home. Look at this. And so far, Emile's been good on his word and everything. And like, I'm not going to reach a milestone on any particular quest because I don't feel like we missed any amount of that. We've been doing it as we went. We've definitely got all of that. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for this time. It's so weird. I'm so used to setting up the kind of cliffhanger, but I think this one really is just, we truly finished a chapter here. And while there's definitely more to the story, and the podcast is absolutely going to be back at you next Wednesday, Emile's adventures are just going to have to continue next time. Thank you so much for making it this far in the podcast. Honestly, if you've made it through the end of episode 12, you've devoted a significant portion of your life. So I'm not asking you to do anything this week, just thanking you. It's not entirely true. I am going to still ask you to help me out with some prompts. This week's prompts are another action and theme that I've got for you. This week's prompts are communicate and superstition. And this time around, I want you to tell me about an injustice. What is an injustice that happened inspired by the words communicate and superstition? As always, send them into starforgedpod@gmail.com. I'd love to see your creativity and be able to showcase it on the show, ideally. I don't really have that much to say this time. I'm just so jazzed and relieved to finally be at the end of that chapter, like to finally get Emile back to what's basically a starting point of a character. Like, to finally have Emile out of the frying pan. I feel so relieved. But since I have so little to say, I guess the only thing that's really left is play me out, music.